Discovery's always a challenging show. There's a lot of big ambition to the sequences. You know, certainly the Sandrunner sequence was something we hadn't done before.
Kumau was a very exciting environment. So we started off by going down to Brazil and shooting out in the desert dunes. We scanned roughly 3 miles worth of sand dunes.
We managed to merge our Delta gimbal software with the wall so that for our Sandrunner sequence, we could have the wall telling our gimbal where it needed to be for that sequence.
We've mapped the camera's movement from the AR wall into the 4 axes of motion for the gimbal. These two are linked in time and space so that the two match up with one another. So the gimbal really accentuates the assets that have been created for the AR wall behind me here.
I mean, once you're on that thing and it's moving and around, you're in it. Like, you're being thrown around and you're matching up stuff. It's a physical reality.
Off camera, there's guys controlling the wind machine. There's guys throwing biodegradable dust stuff. I did choke as well, but I suffer for my art, damn it.
I've always wanted to do a sequence on the back of a ship at warp, and like this was my opportunity.
Utilizing practical effects along with visual effects is always very helpful for us because it's something real that's in the shot that we can build off of. We know what the light looks like, we know how it moves, all those sorts of things.
What? Oh, look at that. It looks like the finished thing.
It looks finished, yeah. Like it looks like that could go on TV. You can't imagine it. What was required to make that happen. It was definitely a challenge, but I'm surrounded by incredible people.
The pools of Macalau from season 3 were built in a soundstage. This season, we used the AR wall, so it was kind of a mixture of physical set and rocks of the cave that they built, and then of course the AR wall, which allowed us to see so much more of what that area actually looked like.
So when we actually get out into the canyons of Trill, we were tasked with creating the Etranach that is a massive creature that's very threatening that we don't see.
I just remember at one point they were like, just look high, and then they were like, no, higher. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's it's that big.
We managed to come up with a sequence of shots where we would have practical explosions and bursts of water and puddles as though these big, massive creatures are racing through the practical environment. And then we would take that and add the shimmer of its cloaking abilities so that you get a reaction from the environment so that it ties our massive invisible creature into this practical world.
Breathable atmosphere in my ass. It smells like a tomb in here.
It's better than wearing a helmet.
In the first episode, actually, we're introduced to the Breen without even knowing that they're going to be our bad guys for the season when Locke takes off his helmet in the Romulan science vessel.
The Breen don't show their faces. And they say, yeah, well, you're going to be the first Breen character who takes off his helmet. And that got me really excited.
Credit to special effects makeup for the base look of the Breen. You know, they did that and it plays through most of the season without us touching it at all. But the gelatinous part obviously was something we knew we were going to be able to play with.
Attention, all personnel. We are now at yellow alert.
The scale of the Dreadnought specifically and being able to showcase that is always something that we, spend a lot of time on because you need to make sure that it feels imposing. And a lot of that has to do with the exterior details and, we get the design from the art department, production design to start, and then we dress in all the textures and things to make sure that whatever the camera ends up being, whatever lens we end up using, it feels like this massive, massive ship. And then, for the interiors and the virtual production of it all, I think that might have been the biggest asset we've ever done on any of the shows.
On the AR wall, when it's in full swing, it's really spectacular because you really believe you're there, which is the great advantage of having it because it affects how the actors don't have to pretend that the expanse is miles away because it looks like there are miles. Everything about it has improved the quality of the filmmaking.
Yes, that's the shot.
This was personally one of my favorite environments that we worked on, just because of the level of detail and complexity which we had to deal with. We had everything from moving ships to parked ships that were hovering and emitting steam and atmospherics. We had digidoubles within our environment. We had soldiers actually responding to cues on set.
And I think that's what's the key to a good, asset and any visual effects asset for that matter, is a level of detail that is just, very, very intricate. And that asset has it.
So for our final episode, again, Latunde came back to direct that, and he wanted to place everything virtual right outside of two binary black holes circling each other while our shuttle is trying to hold on to this portal before it gets sucked away. For the episode, there's a sequence where Book is inside the shuttle, and we needed a way to shoot that practically. And so we wound up creating a video element that we used on our virtual production wall that was actually playback. And so it's this binary black hole system circling each other, and there's all kinds of debris and fire and everything being sucked into this black hole, all shot practically on stage in camera with the help of special effects, blasting smoke and steam and all that kind of stuff to make it seem extra violent, and it turns out really, really well.
The Infinity Tunnel is this massive space that exceeds all the way as far as you can imagine forward and as far as you can imagine backward, and between each sort of walkway you see a brand new world.
When you look at the Infinity Hallway, that Infinity Hallway is all a VR asset, and it has these portals to the other worlds, but those portals, when you go in, those are all actual locations that we shot at and that we created with special effects. So we'll take the forest and we'll put an infrared filter on it and make it look pink. And no one will ever recognize it, and it's gonna look rad. Okay? Then we'll go to our parking lot and we'll create a rain planet. And the rain's gonna fall from there, and no one will ever know that we're in a parking lot. And then we'll go to another part of the parking lot and we'll build a fire world. And we'll have Darcy, special effects, put as much fire as possible, all in one area that's 40 feet long by 20 feet wide. So we have basically the most expensive technology imaginable to create the Infinity Hallway. And then we went completely low-tech analog for all the different worlds you go to, except for the final place that we see the progenitor at. That also is a VR environment.
We have about 7,000 yellow hydrangea flowers that we have dressed. And into that, there's this sort of cross-hatched set of walkways that the actors interact with the flowers on.
So similar to what we did in the Sandrunner chase sequence, for one of the later episodes, we also had a robot that the special effects team built, which would essentially drive a light across our stage to match the position of our digital light within the environment.
It can give us more intensity than the wall itself, so it can give us that flare. And so we manufactured a curved track that goes between the volume deck and the AR wall, and we built a robot that could drive along that track and communicate with the wall. It's just taking it to another level, right?
It's important to say about virtual production that it takes a village to do it. It's meant to be a very, very freeing space to shoot in, and you only can do that when everybody buys in. It's a wonder that it works the way it does, and there are challenges along the way, but through this teamwork and through these bridges of people and in this communication, something really beautiful happens where you're able to tell amazing stories, and you're able to do that in a technological wonderland.